Hi guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make some simple edits to your photos. And as we talked about in class, a lot of people, there are a lot of different programs you can use to make edits to your photos. You can actually just edit on your iPhone. You can edit in Bridge, which a lot of people use, but I'm going to show you how to do some editing in Photoshop. This is what I use. I like it. I've been working in Photoshop for a long time, so I just tend to do a lot of work in here. So I've pulled up this image. This was an image that I had taken by a photographer, but I asked her to send me the original images, without any edits so that I could have them to manipulate. So obviously this looks like crap, right? So this is an image of a painting that I did, or a collage piece that I did. And we've got some problems here. First of all, the painting is not really straight. The background, there's this big dark space in the background. The wall is really crappy looking. We don't want that. And this photo just overall is just really, really dark. So I'm going to do a couple of things to show you just ways that we can edit our photos. So first, I'm going to make a copy of this. And to do that, I can click and drag it down to the plus sign, and it makes a copy, or I can just press Command J, okay? So you always want to make a copy. You really don't want to make edits on your background, because if you're doing that, you're corrupting your file. You want to make a copy and do editing there, so that you're not messing up the original file. So say I did something and I was like, man, this looks like crap. It's going to be hard for me to get back to my original image. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is crop this. This is just an awkward, you know, size. So let's go in. I'm going to go to the cropping tool here, and these little crosshairs are going to come up, and I'm just going to move it down to the size that I think looks good. Okay. Yeah, I think for now, I think that looks great. Okay. This is a much, just nicer, thing to look at. It's just, I don't need all that extra space. Okay, so now I'm not really, this background is, it just looks bad, I think. You know what, let's not do that though. Let's wait a second and do that. First, I'm gonna brighten this up, okay? So there's a couple ways to do this. You can go up to Image and go to Adjustments, okay? And you have all these options here for ways to edit your photo. Now, I used to do it like this. There's actually an easier way to do it. And whereas we're going to come over here to Adjustments and click Adjustments. And this whole, like all these little icons are going to come up. So it's basically the same stuff that's up here in your adjustments, okay? But the difference is this is going to do every adjustment on its own layer, okay? So this is really a better way to work. There are times when you would want to do it this way, okay? But for our purposes, let's work in here, okay? So the first thing I want to do is levels. I think this is a really, really great tool here. And this may be the only one that you need for editing your photos. So you click on levels, and this, this box comes up here. I'm gonna scroll down just a little bit. So what this is saying here is, see, there's, this graph, and there's a light little meter, a mid little meter, and a dark little meter. And this is telling me how many lights, my brights, my midtones, and my kind of dark shadows, okay? So I want to adjust these, okay? So I'm gonna take this one and brighten it, and you can see already on the left, it's brightening this up. So if I go really far, you see it goes really bright, okay? But just make little adjustments at a time, okay? So I'm gonna brighten that up. I'm gonna brighten my midtones up, okay? Now obviously that's too washed out. So I'm gonna go back in, make my darks a little bit darker, pop that brightness up a little bit more. And that looks pretty good. Okay, This is really, for a lot of people, this can do pretty much everything that you need, okay? So I would generally start in here, okay? Now, I'm gonna show you what some of these other adjustments do, okay? So let's go to hue and saturation, because this one actually for this image might be very helpful. So we have hue, we have saturation, we have lightness, okay? And lightness, it's basically how light is the image, how dark is the image. I don't really want to mess with that. So I'm just going to put it back onto 0, and you see that number there. Put that back onto 0. Now the saturation, I do think this could be a little more saturated. The color is just slightly washed out. So I can just, now, and I'm going to go all the way to the right and see what happens. Obviously that's not what we want. Go all the way to the left, it's black and white, okay? So let's just bump that saturation up just a smidge. And that actually looks good. That's about what it looks like in the actual, in real life. Now, hue. And this one's really, really fun. And this may be one that you guys want to play around with. So what this does, it just kind of changes the base hue. All right, so here you see it's turned kind of into purples and blues. Let's go over here. Oh, wow, look at that. So obviously for this image, we don't need that, right? That's not something that we want. But you might find that with your work, you want to change, especially if you're working on a mood board, maybe you need an image to be more in the pinks and purples or in the blues or something. And you can adjust that with hue. Now I'm going to go back to this being at 0. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Now also notice at the bottom, it's putting these all on a separate layer, okay? So I can basically click off my levels, okay? I can click off my hue saturation, so you can really play around with this and then go back in and kind of adjust, okay, I don't need this, I need this, blah, 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 blah. So in these adjustments, just play around with these. Selective color, I sometimes use that. So let's see. Let me just show you what this does. Let's go to the blacks. So sometimes I find that like I'm losing my reds or I'm losing my blacks. So I can go in there and bump them up. So I bumped up all the black. Say they're too, the black is too yellow. I'm going to bump up all the magentas. Or maybe I want to bump down the yellow. Obviously, that's kind of crazy looking. Maybe I want to bump that all the way up. This is just something that, let's see, let's go to reds. And let's bump the black up on the reds. Maybe bump it down. No, that's not going to work. Okay, let's see. Maybe that red just needs to pop a little bit more. So you just need to go in there and bump those reds up a little bit. See if I go cyan, which is kind of like a blue, and I turn it down. Look how like saturated and kind of almost neon those reds look. So that can be a really, really fun adjustment to work with. For this image, I don't think that's necessary, so I'm gonna turn it off. Let's see if there's another one that I use. Vibrance, exposure, if it's overexposed, you can kind of bump that down or bump it up. That's really blown out, obviously. Let's see, and I don't want that, but I just want to show you what they do. Invert, you won't need that. Posterize, threshold, selective color. Those are the main ones I use. Now we can go to black and white. Okay, so this is one you might actually want. This black and white, now I can kind of play around with this because this isn't coming across very well in black and white. It's not very rich. It definitely needs some help. So we can kind of play around with these. I can make the blues darker. Let's see, make these lighter, make them darker. Bump that up. Make the greens a little darker. Okay, maybe not that dark. So you can just play around with this, and obviously just doing this, I'm getting a much richer black and white, okay? So you don't just want to turn it black and white and that's it. You want to play around with this. And this is all just kind of play. You know what you like and you know what looks good. So just kind of play around and see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off actually. So basically for me, what I needed to do was I ended up doing levels and hue saturation. So remember with levels, we were able to adjust the brights, the midtones, and the darks. And with hue saturation, we were able to, kind of play around with the different hues and also, how saturated it was. Okay, so I'm gonna pick up with this in the next tutorial, so stay tuned. Bye.